Here we have a very simple character. It's consisting of two balls, a red one and a blue one. Your characters, the ones that I've seen, are kind of complicated, right? More like 5 to 10 different shapes to create the character. And you want to have the character be movable. But how do you get the character to be movable if they're consisting of multiple shapes? Right? That's the question. And my first response to that would be, instead of having a character consisting of shapes, it would be easier if you had the character consisting of an image using this image type of object, right? You find the URL of the picture that you want and you use new web image to place them into a variable, set its size, add them to the screen. That way you only have one shape object that you need to move around the screen, similar to what you would do in basic Snake. But if you're dead set on getting this to happen, the way that you can do it, this is of course just one example, but it would work for a character with any number of shapes. You're going to go ahead and create an array. And what is an array? An array is a set of variables. All right. So you can see here we have a set of variables. The name of the array is ARR. The name could be anything, just like the name of a variable can be anything that you want. And if we had different letters in here, let's say from A to J, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, or A to I, how would you refer to the I over here? How would you print that out to the screen? Because if you print line ARR, the name of the array, that's ambiguous because it refers to all of the different variables here. Right. So the way that it happens is that each variable in the array is indexed by a number. First one starting at 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, up to 9. And so you could say print line R sub, we call it the two brackets sub 9, and that would print out the I. Right. So using the indexes and the name of the array, we can refer to each element that's in the array. We call these different variables elements. So that's what we're going to need to do to get our shapes moving around the screen, is we need to put all of the shape objects into an array, and then we're going to use a for loop to scroll through and move them all at the same time. So how does that work? Well, if you look under the docs, you could see how to create an array. I believe it's here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. So this is how you create an array, and we're going to say arg. You can call this whatever you want, the two brackets. Now we have an empty array. Its size is 0. There are no variables inside of this array. There are no elements inside of this array at this moment. And the way that we put elements in is that we can use push right here. So what do I want to push onto the array? I want to push these character shapes on there. So I add the first circle to the screen, and then I push that circle onto the array. So when it runs this, now my array has one element in it, right, whose index is 0. And then I got my second shape, and I want to do the same thing here. I want to push in this other shape object onto the array. At this moment, my array has two elements in it. This one here has index of 0. This one here has an index of 1. Right? If you have more shapes on in your character, you're going to continue to push, and your index is going to grow, and your array length is going to grow, and your index is also going to be incrementing. Right. All right, so I have my character into the array. How do I get him to move? Well, what you probably want to do is do a set timer. This is going to be the engine that moves him around the screen. So we could say move char. Set the timer at 50. Just like in basic Snake. Of course, there are many ways you can do this. This is just one of a number of possible ways to get this going. And you can have a for loop. Okay, and so if I haven't mentioned it before, I'm mentioning it now. For loops and arrays are best friends. And why? Because a for loop has this counting variable that starts at 0 and increments until a certain condition is met. And the condition that we're going to use is our r.length, and we're going to do I++. Right? So why is that? Why are for loops and arrays best friends? Because so far here I have an array whose length is 2, right? It has 2 elements, So this here is going to return the number 2, right? Which means that this for loop is going to iterate 2 times, which means that I is going to be 0 on the first iteration and 1 on the second iteration. And why is that wonderful for arrays? Well, that means I could do r sub I, right, equals some new value. And so this for loop is going to scroll through every element in the array, and it's going to set each element equal to some new value, right? So this opens the door to different kinds of algorithms like sorting and searching, which are, I guess, like the introductory, like the first algorithm that you learn when you take a algorithms class at the university level, right? So what do we want to do with each element in the array? Well, we don't want to set it to a new value. We just want to move. We just want to move them around the screen. So we're going to do a dot move, and we're going to move him dx and dy. And that means we need to create a dx and a dy. So we're going to say var dx is equal to 0, and a var dy is equal to 0, right? I don't want him to move in the beginning, right? If you want him to start moving in the beginning, then you can put a 5 here, right? Or something here. And so again, just to review, move, what does it do? It takes this shape object, and this is a shape object, right? It's a long name for the first element in the array during the first iteration of the for loop. So this is just a complicated way of saying the first element that I pushed onto the array, right? So we're saying circle dot move. What does move do? It takes the shape's x position and increments it by this value, takes the shape's y position and increments it by that value. If both of these are set to 0, 0, that means that this shape object is not moving, even though this function is running on a timer and constantly executing, right? All right, so we're gonna move, and so this for loop is now gonna move both of the shape objects in the array, this one and this one, because I is gonna be equal to 0, then I is gonna be equal to 1. So it's gonna move the first element, then it's gonna move the second element. All right, but the character is not moving at all, right? So how do we get the character moving? Well, the rudder that we're gonna use is a mouse. No, it's going to be a keyboard event. So we are going to keyboard events, key down method, right? This one runs this function when a key is pressed down. This one runs this function when the when a key is released. So we're going to say key down method, and we're going to put in here change direction. And how is the change direction function going to look like? It's going to be change dir. The key down method takes e, so you can know what key it is. And so the first thing is you want to check which key it is. And so I'm going to put here, give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to put here if e.keycode is equal to keyboard left. That means I want him to move in the left direction, so I'm going to set my dx to -5 and my dy equal to 0. So again, we start the game, this is going on, but dx and dy are set to 0, 0, so the character is not moving. Once I key down, then my dx is equal to -5, which means this engine is going to be pushing the character to the left side of the screen. Now I want it to be set up where if I release the left key, right, then the character is going to stop moving. And so how do you detect if you release the key? Well, we're going to use a key up method, right? So I'm going to do that. The function I'm going to run is going to be descriptive, and I'm going to say stop char, stop the character from moving, and I'm going to say function stop char, and I really don't care which key it is, right? We could have this same setup where we could say if the key is the left key, then set dx to 0. But when you think about it, it really doesn't matter what key they release. On any key release, you want the character to stop moving. So I'm just going to set dx equal to 0, dy equal to 0, and call it a day, right? But if you needed to, you could do this same check inside of the key up method to check which key was released and set your variables equal to whatever it is that they need to be set equal to. So anyways, let's go ahead and check it out, see if it goes. I'm going to press the left key, and you see that? They're moving. I hold it down, they move, I let go, and they don't move, right? So that's what you're going to do. You're going to extend that to also include the up key, the right key, the down key, changing DX and DY accordingly, and that should get your character moving around the screen if he's made up of different shape objects.